So with all of this knowledge, how do you sleep at night, Michael? How do you live in peace with all of this knowledge?
We talked about that. I don't always feel at peace. I mean, I do struggle with anxiety. I think it comes in waves. Sometimes like looking at things and like I have this bad habit of always trying to connect the dots in every situation, and it can start to feel a little overwhelming in those times. I do think that part of the reason I have as much peace as I do is just like my relationship with God, like understanding that like it doesn't matter if I have control or not at the end of the day. Like he appoints and sits down every king, right? So like I can sit here and just have all this anxiety about things that are going on, but understanding like there is more at play than me, and that's ego. My anxiety is ego. My anxiety is me feeling like I have to have control of my environment. In reality, I don't. I just have to trust. And then outside of that too, I think it's just like that acceptance of like, yeah, like we do live in a cycle. You talked about that show. Was it Love and Robots? Death, Love and Robots?
Yeah.
That refrigerator society, right? Great episode. Even if you look at it biblically, like in the very first chapter or I think it's actually the third chapter of Genesis, in the creation story, second or third, after, I think it's third, because after Adam is created, then he creates Eve. God creates Eve, and he tells them, even in the original Hebrew translation, he says, "Go and repopulate the earth." What does that mean? And then when they have two sons, Cain and Abel, right? Cain kills Abel. God banishes him from the community, says, "You're going to go out and you're going to wander the lands." He pleads with God and he goes, "No, like the people out there will kill me." What people? What are you talking about? Like there's the only thing that's mentioned right now is Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel. But he is terrified to go out into the lands for the people who live out there and what they will do to him.
Do you think it was actual people, or do you think it was his fear and ego?
I think it was people. I think it was more than people. And this kind of goes back to your question of like, is there more than one kind of human? I mean, the Catholic Church took multiple books of the Bible out. They edited it. Didn't like that one. They cut it out. The Book of Enoch, right? It talks about
that doesn't bring any doubt to you at all.
In what way?
When it comes to your faith, when you know that maybe, I don't want to get too deep with this, but that they gave you a edited book, where I know that the Apocrypha was like the original Bible, where it was like had like 4 or 5 more chapters in it that was taken out because it didn't go against the actual Christian beliefs during that time period.
You've got to go back to the original Hebrew writings. I mean, the Catholic Church was anti-Semitic, right? So you got to go back to the Hebrew writings to understand, like, to get all the books.
And another question I have: do you feel like this Bible, or the Bible that we know of, was the first Bible?
Well, no.
So you think there was Bibles for other?
Well, of course, it's the first Bible because it was the first Bible. We hadn't invented books, so I mean,
that's what we're saying. Like, but we're saying like the world been around for billions a year, for a billion year. Let's say in the past like 4,500 years, or like 4,500 years, we get this Bible. You know what I'm saying? My thing is, if there is advanced civilizations before us, you don't think they had maybe some type of guidebook,
some kind of manuscript? I think it is incredibly narcissistic of us to think that like this human timeline that we can create and look back genealogically, like we can say this is when people created time. This is when people created the written language and writings and manuscripts. We are constantly proven wrong on that. I mean, you can look at the Sumerians and things like this and them creating times and calendars. And then you have these civilizations in Central America. Of course, they weren't around at the same time, but like they didn't learn from the Sumerians, right? So like these cultures were developing their own calendar systems and in different parts of the globe, you had individuals developing their own calendar systems and times and all these things. I think it's ridiculous for us to think that this is just like recent technology and that there was no other time in history where people had the ability to read and to write and to create stories and I mean, most of what we know from the Bible is descended down from scrolls and writings and collections of manuscripts. So I think there's,
Because
yeah,
I will be so I would be so paranoid if I felt like this was the only Bible. And the only reason I say that is because there's an old saying that says, if you tell a lie enough, it becomes a truth. And
sure, that
and
we know that to be true.
is that in order to be true? And before the Sumerians and the whole idea of writing came to be about, it was all about storytelling. It was like,
Yeah.
I tell my story to your tribe, you
Sure.
pass it on to your descendants, and it goes to this tribe, and then go through all throughout time about who says like one person can't change one thing,
Yeah.
and it really just deters everything off of its course.
But if I had 100% certainty through documented evidence that what I believe is what I believe, then it wouldn't be faith.
I understand where you're going with this. I feel like we each have our own religious barriers when it comes to certain things. Because to me, it's when it comes to religion, I went down this whole path with religion, and when I found out so many documents was burned out of time through different conquerors and different kings throughout time, like the Library of Alexandria, and even other even other institutes that promoted like knowledge back in the day. If you didn't promote what that conqueror wanted you to do, they would literally burn everything you had out of existence and make their own history up.
Yeah.
So for me, just knowing that
we lost a lot in the 30s and 40s.
Is exactly like so to me, just knowing how much history we don't know and how much has been omitted out of what we do know, it makes me feel like if the information we do know isn't manufactured for a reason, with certain parts in history left there just so the course can go to where it is today. It makes you just wonder a lot when when things aren't documented or you don't have the proof. Because like we were saying before, like you have a full book, but you only got the last 2 chapters. It's like you missed the whole journey that could have had smaller gems inside of it.
Yeah, I think in a large scale we do miss a lot of the journey, right? And yeah, that's the big argument when it comes to religion is who's right, whose book is right. Is it the Torah? Is it the Bible? Is it the Quran? You know, like everybody who has a book and a religion, they believe obviously that theirs is correct.
Like it's interesting. Like what if somebody came out with it said, "Hey, I had an angel I wouldn't say possess me, but pretty much give me a vision to write this new Bible Testament." Will we even take it serious?
And you're referencing the Jehovah's Witness.
No. Jehovah's Witness book is pretty much the same. We just have, well, I'm not a witness, but their belief is just that Jesus Christ isn't God. Like Jesus Christ is the Son of God. They don't believe in the Trinity. I know some places believe in the Trinity.
But the Jehovah's Witness has the, what is it, like the book? It's
not like a different book. No. We have different like things like, so we have the Bible. We also have the Watchtower, which we go off of, which is like a magazine that pretty much goes into detail of different Bible scriptures.
But wasn't part of the theology based off of a visitation from an angel?
No, that's not. That's not, or at least I'm not a witness enough to know it. But
or it's just a different interpretation.
It's a different interpretation. They pretty much just believe that only 144,000 people are going to heaven, and then
which is based off of a very confusing scripture
off of scripture,
in the Bible, yeah.
And it pretty much that ended in 1912. I don't know how they got 1912, but apparently this mass scripture got to the point like 1912. The last people that was going to heaven was accepted during that time period. And then when the last days come about, it's not going to be like, they don't believe that we're going, like the people at that time is going to heaven. It's like when you die, you're in the ground until resurrection. If you was righteous, you will be resurrected into the new system in 144,000, and Jesus Christ will be king under this new paradise of earth. And they will pretty much reteach us what we should be doing as Christians, whatever you believe in. And then after a certain amount of time, they're going to re-release Satan to test us one more time. Because before, like the whole biggest thing was Satan was saying like would they like do they really trust you? Like, you know, would they really follow you if they had another choice?
It came down to free will.
Free will. You know what I'm saying? Like if they had another choice, would they really follow you?
You can't truly love somebody if you fully control them.
And I'm not. That's a little deep. That's a little deep right there. I ain't gonna get. That's a little too far for me. But yeah, it's just interesting where it's just like with the witnesses. I feel like everybody had their own belief system, but for me, it is interesting when it just comes to there's so much stuff that we just don't know, and I feel like maybe we should have access. We should have had access to. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to religion, like, it is what it is. Like, I guess at the end of the day, I don't really need to be right. I just want to know that, like, I want to know my heart was in the right place. And for me, it's more about a relationship than it is about like indoctrination or, well, okay, doctrination, but like a lot of it can be indoctrination.
This is what I asked my mom like a year or two ago, because she said something where it kind of bothered me, because I guess witnesses don't like celebrate going to weddings and different things like that.
Yeah, mind you, celebrate birthdays.
Mind you, she has been to weddings before, but one day she was like, "Hey, what if? She's like, if you got married, what if I didn't go to your wedding?" And I asked her, I said, "What if you are resurrected one day, and you're like in front of God, and He tells you everything you did was wrong? How would you feel?"
Yeah.
I said, would you feel bad that you kind of distanced yourself from some of your family members for this? Or would you still just feel bad that you didn't fully do what He wanted you to do? And she was like, I'll feel bad I didn't really complete my journey with Jehovah. And to me, it's just interesting because it's just like you say, none of us really know. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, like some people might think that their way of living is just, like, in their mind, they might think it's just. But once they get to that certain point, you might be like, hey, this is not how life is supposed to be. So to me, it's like religion is it's such an interesting topic, because to me it's scary and it's also enlightening at the same time. Like, how can you have such duality?
There's so much duality. And I think that's why so many people kind of put their hands in the air and say, I'm agnostic or I'm atheist. Right? Because
I think that's lazy though. I feel like that's just lazy.
That's where I was going. I think it's easier to not play the game than sometimes it's easier to sit on the bench than to get involved. Like, it's hard to say that like I feel that my viewpoint interpretation of God and His love and my relationship with Him it's based off of my faith is more right or better than yours. I think that's why at the end of the day, if the basis of whatever you believe is not founded and based in love, then it's nothing but doctrine, and abusive doctrine at that. Because if it's not based in love, then it's based on actions and works.
But what's love? You got tough love. I mean, you know.
But love is selfless. And to your point, tough love. Sometimes love can look like accountability. Sometimes love can look like being the only person in someone's life who's willing to give them difficult feedback and to hold them accountable and say, you're better than that, and I'm not going to accept your behavior. Loving an addict is different than loving, somebody who grew up in a great, home with two loving parents, right? I mean, not that can't be one and the same thing, but love takes on a lot of different forms. But at the end of the day, I think that love is it's not selfish. It's giving, and it's being willing to do the hard thing to benefit somebody else.